At this stage last season, it's safe to say it was not going very well. We only had 3 points off the board from our first 4 games. However, this season, it's a lot better. It's a lot brighter. 10 points on the board, but not just that. The vibe around West Ham has significantly improved. I'm stupid and don't really understand why, but thankfully, I'm joined by the co founder of Analytics United, Jack Elderton, who's smarter than me and can talk through these things. So, Jack, simple question. What's changed?
Well, we're going to do a little disclaimer at the start. So, a small sample size will give a result which may not be sufficiently powered to detect the difference between the groups, and the study may turn out to be falsely negative or positive. But, 1 goal in 4 last season at this point, 9 goals in 4 this season. We're much more focusing on counters and corners again, which I think to some people won't be super exciting. But to me, after celebrating that Fulham game like a maniac last season, it's pretty exciting. I think for a lot of last season, we watched us try to be something we weren't amazing at. And this season, it seems like we're watching a David Moyes team being a David Moyes team, which is fantastic to see. And not only doing it to a standard level, but last season, 25% of our counters led to shots. This season, it's 55.6% of counters leading to shots. That's the highest we've ever recorded under Moyes. And I know it's nerdy number stuff, but honestly, that's a ridiculous amount of shots from counter-attacks. You usually would never expect to be having success like that. Points back to the small sample size disclaimer, but we take what we can get. The other thing is corners are up a little bit, just 3%, but last season, for the whole first half of the season, we scored twice from corners. This season, we've already got 2. And we'll come on to talk about it a little bit more, but James Ward-Prowse. And then also for a counter-attacking team, it's super, super important to be taking the lead in games. We've done that every single game so far this season, which makes a huge difference. I think last season it was something like 37% of games that we took the lead in. Obviously 100% is not going to be sustainable, but it does massively affect the chances of success when you want to focus on counters as your main route to scoring goals.
Yeah, and that's clear to see. I think that's always one of the strong points when we do the watch long or anything else. When we score first, we certainly feel a lot calmer about the way West Ham play. But we've always sort of been that counter-attacking side. So what has truly changed specifically between, say, last season and now?
It's super early, so it's very difficult to pick out everything right now. We need to see more of the team throughout the season as it progresses. But one of the things that was really clear, for example, specific match Brighton, obviously huge change in the team. Declan Rice leaves and Edson Alvarez comes in. Last season, we were playing 4-2-3-1 a lot of the time. That was our primary system. Sometimes we played with a back 3, but most of the time we were playing 4-2-3-1. Defensively, that shifts into something that looks more like a 4-4-2 or a 4-4-1-1. And you're often getting yourself back with 8 players defensively. The wingers are tucking in really close to the fullbacks. And then you have Antonio or your striker. Sometimes it was Scamacca last season. And that was probably when we were at our worst because we were asking him to do something that Antonio does really well. And Scamacca clearly couldn't do really well. +1. And if you think about when West Ham have done that well, playing in that 4-4-2 defensive block, in terms of scoring goals, it's often been when that number 10 has been someone that can drive beyond the striker on counter-attack. So think back to the Jesse Lingard period at West Ham, or even times when there were loads of goals going in. We were getting 3-3s, 3-2s, 4-3s, those kind of games. And that was when Said Benrahma was playing as the number 10. So you lost a little bit of defensive security, but he was creating a lot. He was causing defenders lots of problems because you had 2 players in the front line who you can't really predict what they're going to do. And half the time you're not really sure they know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
That was mostly how we were playing last season. This season, that's looked more like a 4-1-4-1. And in the Brighton game being a perfect example, Alvarez comes in and he sits between the defensive line and the midfield line. And effectively what that means is that the wingers are able to get closer because when you drop into that 5-4-1, something that West Ham have always done under David Moyes is the low block shape. That's often been the wingers previously, particularly the left-sided player. Fornals often playing as the left midfielder, becoming a left wing-back. Now, or in this game against Brighton, and something I think we'll see a little bit this season, it's Alvarez dropping between the centre-backs, allowing the centre-backs to split. That gets your wingers higher. And it also means when you're countering, it's not just your striker and your number 10 at the top of the pitch, but actually you've got 5 players released straight away. You've got the striker, you've got your 2 number 8s ahead of Alvarez and the 2 wingers as well, able to support immediately. And if you're looking at the profile of the squad as well, those players in the number 8 positions are maybe a little bit more technically able to create for the people around them. And you've also got players who have got great legs to get up and down and support both defensively and offensively when you're countering. So those are some of the early indicators in terms of what might have changed to make the counterattacks a little bit more effective.
What about James Ward-Prowse? Because obviously he's come into the side and has surprised a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people were particularly super high on his signing. This was peak the moment where it felt like it was Moyes versus Steiden versus Sullivan versus Noble somehow, and there was all that beef going on, and he was certainly one of the people caught in the crossfire of that. Yet he's come in, and I think everyone has come to recognise actually he isn't exactly what we thought he was. He's a little bit more than that as well.
Well, maybe Moyes was right cracking on with all that British players, Premier League players chat, because well, he looks like he's been here for years. Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. But when you're talking about what he can do as a player, there are two clear things that he is offering us to a really high level. Number one is related, I think, to the amount of distance he covers in games. So we're looking at recoveries, the amount of times in games watching West Ham now where the ball goes loose and there it is, it's James Ward-Prowse running onto it. And actually his distribution in those moments is great as well. So if you're looking at the difference between Thomas Souček running onto a loose ball, what can he do when he takes that first touch or first two touches? Is he going to be able to play progressively and allow you to release onto a counter-attack straight away, compared to James Ward-Prowse running onto a loose ball? It's a different kettle of fish, and we've seen that so far already. His distance is covered as crazy every game. Last season he ran, I think it's like 15k more than any other player in the Premier League. Pascal Gross came second, Declan Rice came third, but Ward-Prowse way out ahead of everyone else. So that works perfectly in terms of him covering all of that ground defensively, but then getting forward to support counters. You see that with his goal against Brighton. The other big thing that he's bringing is set pieces are a huge part of how David Moyes' teams score goals. A big plus with counter-attacking is that defenses are always disorganized. So you get defenders making more rash decisions. So that often leads to free kicks. And if you can't complete a counter-attack, you can often see like our wingers, Ben Rama, Bowen, or the fullbacks getting up, and you just play the ball off of a defender and take a corner as the kind of upshot of a counter. And it's a huge difference with James Ward-Prowse in the team now that there's such a threat from those free kicks if teams concede them, and then also from the corners if teams concede those, that you're going to be able to create chances. Big difference between being a 1-0 get ahead and defend a 1-0 counter-attacking team, and a team that gets ahead but still always has that potential to get a second from any kind of dead ball situation.
And then it also helps, I guess, when Bowen's having as good a season as he is having at the moment.
He's been incredible. He's been absolutely incredible so far. And I think if you're looking at what West Ham want to do, is you want a huge number of your shots falling to Bowen, and that's been happening so far this season. And then you also want to be getting him into the right areas to score goals. And another one of the things that we were going to talk about was the quality of chances that West Ham have been taking so far this season. One of the problems last season being low XG per shot, and also taking shots from further out on average. And this season, that's massively dropped. And now you're looking at West Ham as one of the most effective teams in terms of creating really high quality chances. For example, this season, we're 4th in the league for MPXG per shot on average. Last season, that was 17th in the league. So it's a huge, huge jump in terms of the quality of chances that are being taken at the end. And a big part of that is Bowen getting into the right areas and us being a little bit more patient on counter-attacking moves rather than rushing and taking a shot when we're arriving in the final third. It's actually taking that extra second, finding the right pass and creating a goal from that. I know it wasn't a counter, but the goal against Luton, the first goal against Luton, kind of shows that. It's a situation where we may have seen Declan Rice taking a shot from range last season, or passing to Ben Rama cutting in and taking a shot last season. This time we see Paqueta lining up across to the back post and Bowen able to sneak into a perfect area between the centre-back and the full-back and head the ball in.
And then Kaminsky just sort of fumbling it into his own net in a very, unfortunate for him way, but lucky for us.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Luck is a huge part of it, and it's always going to be a huge part of it. And we've had a couple of moments this season where things have fallen for us. If you think back to last season, like the Liverpool game always stands out to me from last season, of like, you have a few chances and then suddenly James Milner pops up and blocks it off the line. You think, for God's sake, what is going on this season? Nothing is dropping for us. And then so far this season, you have a potential banana skin away at Luton, and their goalkeeper throws the ball into his own net and gives you the lead that makes you that effective team when you're counter-attacking, or gives you much more control. I know we weren't really focusing on counters that game because it's Luton and they're not going to really let you do that. We had to take more control, but it certainly helps us. And a good way to show that, I suppose, is MPXG overperformance. So the amount of chances that are being converted above and beyond what's actually expected. Last season, we were below at 0.23 per 90. That was 15th in the league, so one of the poorest finishing sides, or at least lucky sides in front of goal. I would classify it as poorest finishing more than luck, and this season we're up in fourth right now with 0.47 overperformance. That's also reflected the other way round as well, which helps. Ariola's pulled out some big stops when he's been needed, and teams haven't finished perfectly against us. So we're fifth in the league the other way around, 0.47 underperformance against us, where last season we were 15th with 0.04 overperformance, so teams scoring basically exactly what you'd expect. So you're looking at those metrics completely flipping from where they were last season. So one of the least effective teams in front of goal against teams that were always effective in front of goal against us last season, to then completely the other way around now, really effective in front of goal and actually managing to keep the ball out in difficult situations this season.
And helped by so far unreal performances from Kurt Zouma as well. My guy is just proving to be everything we thought he was when he first turned up.
Brick wall. And actually another thing, last season centre-back partnership didn't happen for such a long time. Didn't see our first choice centre-back partnership start. In fact, if you look back to the start of last season, we were starting with Ben Johnson in the middle of defence against Man City. We were really struggling for numbers in that area. This season we've seen Zouma and Ogerd playing lots. Obviously Ogerd got his red card and Ogbonna came in, but he played really well in that game. But crucial to anything, I think, at West Ham, when you're going to be that team that sits a little bit deeper for long periods, forces teams to cross against you or take long shots, being able to head the ball out of the box from those crosses is super important. And Kurt Zouma is one of the best in the league at that. And he's been rock solid so far this season. He'll be crucial to anything West Ham do this season.
He's just immense. He's so good. It's just a man mountain just in the center. And it doesn't matter when you're a team, like you say, where you force people out wide and ask them to cross it in, and then he stood there. You're like, it's fine. Cross it in, it's fine. Kurt Zouma will get there because he's just, well, one, he's that big, and two, he's that good at what he's doing.
We've been a little bit tighter defensively than we were last season. So there were times last season, some people will be watching this and thinking, well, West Ham did play 4-1-4-1 at times last season. And if you watched any of our content at Analytics United, you're probably thinking, he's a bloody hypocrite. He was talking last season about how much he hated the 4-1-4-1, and now he's saying it's really good. One of the big differences is the gaps between the lines last season. So, for example, in the Newcastle game last season, we got huge gaps between the midfield and the defence. And this season, that's really tight, covering a really tight area. So even if the defense is staying quite high, the gap between that back four and your furthest forward midfielder is really tight. So there's not much room to exploit between the lines, which really helps. And then also we've pressed less intensely. A lot of people would have wanted us to press more intensely last season, but we've done the opposite and got better. So last season, our PPDA was 15.09 on average. This season, it's 19.46 so far. So less keen to get out and press teams, happier to keep those tight gaps between the lines, happier to invite teams on, and then springing forwards when we can win the ball, which I think is really always what we've been at our best doing under David Moyes.
There we go. Hopefully that explains it, because I feel like just this season, that shift to pure Moyes ball, we're back, we're firing on all cylinders. And don't get me wrong, like you say, we're not exactly going to keep 100% records for certain things. There will be times where it's going to come unstuck. But the Luton game, as everyone said continuously, was the big marker. Where's the squad at? Where's West Ham at? Where's David Moyes at? And we came across that with aplomb. And I think I was listening to the West Ham breakdown that you did with Cal yesterday. And I think you asked him how he was feeling after the Luton result. And I can only say for myself at this point, an unnecessary amount of confidence, an unnerving amount of confidence for the rest of the season at this point, for me, at least personally.
Good.
There you go. Hang on, let me scratch my ankle. Ankle's really itchy. Am I going to edit that out? Probably not. We'll be back at some point. We do a show called Hamalytics on the West Ham on the Hammers Chat Patreon even. That is up every single week. So if you're a patron, make sure to come get involved in that because we answer your questions. But hey, check out Jack. analyticsunited.co.uk, not .com, .co.uk. And Jack, let the people know what they can find over there.
You can find links to the podcast, which you can also just search on pretty much any podcasting platform. I should hope it's on all of them, which is the West Ham Breakdown. I think if people were aware of me before, we were doing this for members only last season, but now we're launched on all platforms. So you can access the podcast for free if you want to support it, because it's pretty challenging to cover all the costs to watch every West Ham game and get all the data back on demand. Then head to analyticsunited.co.uk/members and yeah, you'd be enabling us to continue to do videos like this.
Appreciate it, everyone. Come on, your irons, enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you next time. See you later, everyone. Bye, everyone. Bye.